All work, no play may have made Jack a dull boy, but all work, no guy.
F. Scott Fitzgerald's novel The Great Gatsby suggests that material excess was rampant in the wealthy class from the years of the 1920s to the 1930s. Fitzgerald suggests that the wealthy class assumed no responsibility and suggested the idea that the East held opportunity and the idea of wealth. That idea suggested that wealth could be easily attained. Recent jaded veterans of World War I had returned and were cynical of both the world itself and of old money. The veterans' interaction with old money led to the American dream being thwarted by easy wealth and scandalous social norms. Throughout the novel, there is an overarching theme of a longing for the past. This is exposed both through Gatsby's longing for Daisy and arguably Fitzgerald's longing for the pre-1920s. The novel touches on how old money not only has no responsibility, but has no depth or humanity at all. Fitzgerald is attempting here to expose the idea that the rich and wealthy of our community are only shallow people. Fitzgerald goes on to suggest that the loyal and the true, such as Gatsby, die, while the shallow, selfish, affected, and unaware, like Tom, continue to control our communities. While The Great Gatsby exposes flaws in our American dream, Pigs in Heaven suggests the idea of struggle in our nation. This struggle is paralleled by both Taylor and Anawake. Taylor's struggle is with providing for a family, while Anawake's is for protecting her tribe and living with the guilt of her lost brother. This novel suggests the antithesis of our supposed American dream, that money has no part in happiness, only family and love. This is exposed through Alice's, Cash's, and Anawake's perception and experience within the Cherokee Nation, full of its interconnected and loving community. Pigs in Heaven implies our failings as a country lie within our imposition of our own perfect culture and the so-called dream that money can be attained and is necessary in the pursuit of happiness. John Steinbeck was the son of a teacher and a county treasurer, born in Silicon Valley, California. He had many different jobs, however, never graduated from college. He wrote during the Great Depression and often about farmers. All of these would eventually become necessary to many of his settings in his novels. His ideas reappear throughout his writing, often angry at the destruction of the farming system and community by big farms taking over. At first, he wrote of the unaffected farm life in Of Mice and Men, where George and Lenny escaped the pressures of the Great Depression. However, later he recognized those effects in his most acclaimed novel, Grapes of Wrath. He was very acclaimed for his work, especially in remembrance of his works on farm in California. F. Scott Fitzgerald, who we have already recognized as the author of The Great Gatsby, was born in St. Paul, Minnesota. He often has recurring themes of animosity towards boredom in the Midwest. Much of his writing talks about the riches and fame of the East. He was married to a partier and married into parties. He lived by themes of wealth and wrote about them: cars, golf, expensive clothing, polo, and gold, among other jewels. While he was a soldier in World War I, these also occur in many of his novels as themes of veterans, of the young and the restless. He questioned the American dream he was in fact living, especially in his most acclaimed novel, The Great Gatsby. During the modern era, writers broke traditions and social norms. Satire and rebellious writing spread throughout the writing community like a disease. With World War I and a failing national government, writers began to abandon the old ways. Some characteristics were rebellion and shift. These characteristics yielded an overall theme that writing style was changing based on what was going on around the globe. that the people had power and optimism for change. These writers linked their writing with the American dream during this time period by saying the individual can make it. You don't need fancy things to make it. All you need was optimism. A Worn Path by Eudora Weltley is a story about an old black woman named Phoenix. Phoenix tries to get medicine for her ill grandson, but she is old and her mind is failing her. We can see this when Phoenix shows signs of dementia by imagining things that aren't really there, like the little boy with pie, or when she imagines the scarecrow as a ghost. This connects to our American dream, the idea money can't buy happiness, because Phoenix and her grandson are the only ones left in their family, yet she continues to support him and has a strong faith in God and in herself to get the medicine her grandson needs, so the swelling in his throat from swallowing a lie will recede. Mrs. George Reese by Edgar Lee Masters is a poem told by a deceased woman whose husband was sent to prison while she was left to raise their kids by herself. This connects to our American dream because Mrs. Reese was essentially widowed and had to raise her children on her own, yet she persevered and her children grew up to be successful, even without coming from money. In the November issue of Reason.com, Ronald Bailey begins to expose the idea that money does not, in fact, buy happiness. This parallels our findings in both The Great Gatsby and Pigs in Heaven, where the suggestions were that happiness was corrupted by money and only family and love is necessary. Bailey goes on to reference a 4-decade-long investigation on gross domestic product rates increasing in countries as well as average incomes, while their well-being and satisfaction rates hadn't changed. Bailey suggests this is in direct contradiction to our American dream, or as he refers to it now as the Eastern Paradox. Studies have shown now that money over $15,000 a head have yet to prove a correlation with any real gain in happiness, and that a 20% increase of payment has the same effect, whether that be from $500 to $600 or $500,000 to $600,000. The national average income of the United States has also increased dramatically, while the average American happiness has hardly budged. Times were tough during the Great Depression, and most people either became homeless or lived in shacks. This picture relates to the thought of money doesn't buy happiness, because even though this woman was living in a shack and was most likely very poor, she still tended to something that she could call her own, her flowers. During the Great Depression, families had little to nothing. Being happy was hard, but this picture connects the idea that money doesn't buy happiness. Even though these kids didn't get to eat 3 meals a day and spent their days sitting around, they found ways to entertain themselves and ways to smile. Because no money was available to go and spend on entertainment, kids had to entertain themselves. This connects to the thought of money doesn't buy happiness because these girls were just smiling and happy to be dancing together in a circle. Just like the girls dancing in the road, boys had to entertain themselves as well. This picture relates to the thought of money doesn't buy happiness because these boys obviously weren't using brand new equipment, yet they were still having fun playing the game.
Scarecrow on a wooden cross, blackbird in the barn, 400 empty acres that used to be mine.
All work, no play may have made Jack a dull boy, but all work, no guy has left Jack with a lost soul. But he's moving on full steam, he's chasing the American dream. He's gonna give his
Levi Foss and his family are living an American dream thanks to the entrepreneurship of his father. His father started his own company many years ago and has supported his family with that since then. And as you can see from the picture, clearly he's doing something right. Madison says he's living the American dream, although he's not rich and famous, but he is a free American with a home, a loving family, and great friends, which is all you really need. And even I am living my own American dream, with my triathlons taking me around the country and to places I would have never dreamed of going. Yes, with my loving family, their support, and my cool turtlenecks, I am living it.
Young enough to say, oh.